Feel like a right doing this, but here we go.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's wicked to see people in the chat already saying good morning. I've seen people from Bangalore, Bristol, the Netherlands, Cheltenham, Cambridge, Hertfordshire. Oh my, it's mad. Anyway, it's wicked to have you here. After a week off, then I hope that music hits just a little bit different. In my eyes, today will be a success if we do three things. The first is that the content gives you something new to think about. The second is that chat feature, which is already alive with all of you. And thank you, Louise, for loving the cap. This is the first ever marketing meetup cap. The chat feature stays alive throughout the course of the session with you listening, saying hello, and being positively lovely. And you also switch, by the way, your chat feature to all panelists and attendees. And three, today will be a success if you share it. The marketing meetup only grows through your contributions, through the community getting behind it and taking the time to say hello and share today's session with the world. Today, I'm so happy to have Laura join us today. She's the head of marketing and fundraising at Worldwide Cancer Research to come and speak with us today. Laura is someone I met through the Marketing Academy, through this year's scholarship. And even though we've been restricted to Zoom, from day one, she's someone who's just like energy, just like shone through the screen. And I mean that in like the most lovely way possible, not the creepy way possible, as someone who is thoughtful, positive, welcoming, and kind. She's the kind of person who immediately just puts you at ease. But also someone who you can trust on to speak on in a considered manner, given her thoughtful nature. I've asked Laura today to speak on purpose, which I know is something that is both important to Laura and I, which is, you know, it's just one of those things that, like, if you've lived a life with purpose and one without, then you know that a life with is a lot better. That being said, it's of course okay to live without. I think we all go through periods of time where, you know, we're all a little bit lost. Today we'll run as a presentation and then we'll have Q&A at the end. And the way you get your questions in is you can wiggle your mouse down the bottom and you'll see that there's a Q&A feature. All the questions go in there. We'll ask them at the end. Today is a lovely session where we can just have a really nice chat and sort of explore this really important topic, and hopefully you walk away with something brand new to think about as well. Before we get going, it's important that I thank today's sponsor, or all of our sponsors, but today's featured sponsor first, who is Geosk. So we mentioned Geosk a few weeks ago as well, actually, that they're our Finland friends. They make lead generation from your website super easy with a tool that is frankly ridiculous. In fact, one of the joys of Geosk and the hardest ways to describe it is that if there's something you want to do on your website, you can pretty much do it through their tool. It makes things super quick, super easy. We use it on our website, and I'm dead happy. They're members of the community, and they've taken the time to give back to the community and say, look, we want to support it. They're really, really good people with a really, really good bit of software. So I really would encourage you to get in touch with Mark, who you will see in the follow-up email, just to say thank you for supporting the community. It's also important to say thank you to the rest of our sponsors, each of which will be featured and mentioned in more detail over the rest of the time. But a big thank you to Impression, Content Cal, Pitch, Fiverr, Redgate, Cambridge Marketing College, Brand Recruitment, Gravity Global, and Third Light. If you're going to be saying thank you to Mark, one quick ask from me would be also to say thank you to the human beings behind those brands. Even though I list off the brands today, every one of them have human beings behind them. Every one of them would appreciate a quick thank you. If there's one thing that can't be overestimated, it's the power of a thank you. So that's my introduction done. Laura, it's over to you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you everyone for your lovely chat messages as well here. It's wicked to have you all here. Laura, over to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Joe, and thank you for the intro, but also thank you for having a wee bit of other information in between, because I probably would have cried if I'd started speaking. That was a lovely thing to say, but also probably a lot of what I would mirror about you. I feel really pleased to be here and to have been asked, first of all, but also to have been able to get to know you a little bit better by, we aren't in the same group for a lot of the Marketing Academy activities, so it's been nice to get a bit of a sense of Joe over the time, and I do think that Positively Lovely brand, the market meetup, totally is present in the founder, which we can talk a little bit about today as we go through the presentation. Lovely to see all your good morning messages. I feel like it would be wrong of me not to say good morning from a sunny Glasgow, although it's not sunny, it's kind of overcast. But I'm looking at all the people who are saying that where they are is sunny, and I'm extremely jealous. It's very rare that I get to say that Glasgow is sunny, but I like to think that we can bring sunny in other ways than the actual weather. Otherwise, we would be a right miserable bunch. So I'm going to get cracking. I'm going to just bring up my screen, and this is the classic "can you see my screen" moment. Give me a little second.
We're well rehearsed in the "can you see my screen" moments.
Oh, totally. Is that are we good? Can we see?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Perfect. Fabby. And Joe, what I'm going to ask is when I do my wee audience participation, but I don't think I can see the chat function. So if you can read out some of the stuff that would be in there, that would be great.
Wicked.
That's a wee cue for all of you. You need to be on it with audience participation. So I am here to speak to you today about finding purpose for you and for your brand. Sorry, give me a wee second. I think I have put up the wrong screen. Just a sec. Let me start again here.
So Laura, when I did my presentation, I managed to present it in presenter view for the entire time. So if you're even got your slides up, you're already.
Well, I just noticed my wee winky wasn't winking, and I thought I'd better make sure that I've got the right slide up. So yes, as Joe mentioned, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about purpose for you and for your brand. A lot of people, I know there's a few people from my team on here today. They'll be bored like sick listening to me talking about purpose, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about. Wee bit of intro from me, as Joe's mentioned, I'm Director of Marketing and Fundraising at Worldwide Cancer, probably the best charity you've never heard of. And my big win for me at the end of this today would be that you will get to know a little bit about us and hopefully engage with us over the course of time. As for me, I am Laura McLachlan. I am a proud Glaswegian, an avid sports fan, a logophile, which really surprised me to find out that is what person obsessed with words is and not logos. I am a general life enthusiast. I find the fun and happiness and joy in most things, which sometimes can make it hard to find your purpose because you love an awful lot of things. But most of all, I love meeting people, hearing about them, what makes them happy, what their purpose is perhaps, knowing and getting to learn about what makes them tick and what makes them talk. And from my point of view, people are really what everything all comes down to in life. A lot of what Joe mentioned there, the people behind brands, your brand might be the expression of your organization, but the people are what really makes it. So a lot of what we talk about today will kind of cover those things. I will also add, I'm not known for my brevity. I will do my best to keep this tight on time. So if Joe starts to think I'm getting a bit thing, he can give me a wee run on, and I won't be offended. So to get you all warmed up, although Joe's music and his video at the beginning just got me so I just wanted to dance, I thought we would start with, as we should, start as we mean to go on, with a bit of purpose of today's session. And what I would love to know is what made you jump out of bed this morning? When you woke up, what made you get up? What were you looking forward to? And what is your kind of aim for today? And I don't just mean this session, I mean, is there anything else that's happening today that perhaps is getting you going?
There's already some great answers coming through. So we've got coffee, we've got this webinar. Everyone's being very friendly. We've got the dog, a workout, another day to crush it from Jeremy. I love that. Early morning walks, runs, first A-level exams, new clients.
Good luck.
Yoga. Oh my God. This community. I might be getting a kitten later.
Oh, amazing.
Dave, recovery from cancer. Good on you, Dave. That's awesome.
Hope it's going well.
John Torrens, pure habit. Some positive. Morning run and the webinar. I have dishes to wash. Presenting campaign ideas. There's a lot coming through.
Love it. So I guess the point and the reason why I do this is everyone has a different reason for why they spring up out of bed in the morning. We all have different things that get us motivated, that drive us, things that are important to us, things that get us excited. And that was, I wanted everyone to get a wee bit of a thought about that before we kicked off today, because it's a nice place to be and a nice thing to be thinking about. So a wee bit about your key takeaways, or what I'm hoping will be the outcome of this session. And there will be a variety of different things, but these are the 3 key areas I'm going to talk about. So what is purpose and why it matters? How to find out who you are and do it on purpose. Again, members of my team will be like, well, that's a familiar quote. Laurie uses this often. And also how to avoid purpose pitfalls, which is more of a general overview, but kind of is definitely much more on the brand side than on a personal side. So those are the 3 key areas that we're going to chat about. But before we start, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. Usually I start with 1, but I'm going to start with 2, because the premise of this, as we know, for this session is we've got both brand and personal. So I'm going to tell you a brand story, and I'm going to tell you a personal one too. So Worldwide Cancer Research, as I said, probably the best charity I've never heard of. We have had in the past a bit of an identity crisis. Joe and I were just chatting a little bit before we came on there, and I was explaining to him about how actually lots of people think that we are a subsidiary or a connector to CR UK, Cancer Research UK, the biggest charity possibly in the world actually, but definitely in the UK. As you can imagine, being a much smaller organisation with a much more lofty sounding title can be a bit of a confusing thing for people. And I think actually internally as an organisation, we were quite confused by that ourselves. We weren't quite sure what our USP was, essentially what our purpose was. And over the course of the last sort of 4 years since I've been there, myself and the fantastic team around me, particularly my head of brand, really got to the place where we were like, we really need to kind of nail this and actually get to a place where we have a consistent purpose that we can continually communicate and really drive home to people. What I always say is, for my team, I want us to get sick of hearing something. And then when we get sick of it, we want to get even more sick of it. And then when we get sick of it even more, we want to keep on getting sick of it, because actually there will always be someone that's never heard it before. And that's a really important thing about brand purpose, if that's what you're trying to deliver. And actually in the course of doing this, I took on and did, I'm sure many of you have done the Mark Ritson, one of his brilliant mini MBA courses, and I did the brand management one, which was just a game changer for me personally, to be honest, and a game changer for our organisation, mainly because of the simplicity of everything that he said. And also, I know I personally, I don't know if it's a Glaswegian thing, we do love a sweetie, but we also, for me, Mark Ritson's sort of no bullshit approach to a lot of this thing really resonated. And I think it's helped us as an organisation, as I'm sure for many of you, whether you're part of a big organisation or a small one, can also benefit from that. And one of the big things I took away from that, as someone who loves purpose, is that, Mark Ritson's a bit of a purpose detractor, depending on what the purpose piece is. But the key thing that I took away from his sessions was that brand purpose and brand position are actually the same thing, which is quite an interesting way of looking at it. So at Worldwide Cancer Research, we then took on Mark Ritson's method, and we went away and we started with our brand diagnosis, which I was quite jealous, because our head of brand got to go away and do that. She got to learn lots of wonderful things, but she started with our founder. And that's why I mentioned earlier, Joe as a founder, his brand as a person, but also the brand for the marketing meetup really do align. And that's the big benefit of a founder. For most founders, your personal and your organizational purpose are one and the same, because what drives you to create. And founders are in a really special position in the world that they're able to do a bit of both at the same time. So Debbie went away, she went and found out about her founder, all the kind of good things about Colin Thompson, who started the charity back in 1979 with a vision to conquer cancer. But what he wanted to do was to change the course of cancer research, to start new amazing ideas, to breathe new life into ideas and start on this sort of quest for cures for cancer. And the other aspects of Mark Ritson's work, as he talks about, going back to the places that the organisations were founded. For us, it was St Andrews. If any of you are golf fans, you'll probably be aware of St Andrews or the university. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, small little place, but it's got global reach. And the wonderful thing about St Andrews is if you're ever wandering down by the golf course, you're very unlikely to hear many Scottish accents. There's lots of different people from all over the world. And the great thing is you get to see them all enjoy the same thing, which is golf, but in their own specific cultural way. So, as an organisation, our roots and where we came from actually mirrored the way that we do our research. We're from Scotland, but we have global reach in terms of the research that we fund. So those two factors, I think, in the research that Debbie did was really, really important, and it really brought to light for us, why did we start in the first place? We'd really gone far, far away from where that was. And the second aspect was, how did where we were as in terms of location, help impact, the values that we breathed as a brand? And then obviously there's other elements to Mark Ritson's work, but I'm not going to go into this. This is not the Mark Ritson debrief of how to do the mini MBA. I'm sure he would not want me to tell you every single thing that you will learn. So if any of you have an opportunity to, please do that course. But that work really did help take us on a bit of a journey to understand also our values. What were the things that were important to us? We do fund discovery research, which is all about progression and innovation and invention. Again, something that Scots are quite famed for. We do like a bit of an invention up here. So we took those values and we listed them all out and we worked out, what are the 10 that are most important to us? And it's important to say that some of them weren't ones that we were necessarily proud of, but it's important to both own the ones that you're good, that you're happy with, and the things that you're not. And from all of that work, we then condensed down onto what are we, who are we, and how do we do it on purpose? And that brought us to our new proposition, which is that we are the UK charity that will end cancer by starting cancer cures worldwide. Sounds dead simple, doesn't it? Easy, really clear cut. As you can imagine, it's not quite as easy to make that happen as it sounds. But that purpose has definitely helped drive us. It's changed our whole strategy as an organisation, and we've now founded our own community of cure starters, which gives people that shared purpose and role in terms of what worldwide cancer research do. So even as an organisation, you can see where that research piece, that understanding you in this context, I'm talking about worldwide cancer research, understanding yourself and where you came from and where you're going. It's actually a really important part of purpose development. So that's how we got to here. And as you can imagine, as Director of Marketing and Fundraising, I had my purposeful work planned out, and as in that role specifically, my job is to lead the fundraising and marketing team to fundraise and friendraise in order to start cancer cures and raise sufficient income in order to make those cancer cures happen all around the world. However, it's probably not fair to say that that's my personal purpose. And I said to Joe and I talked about this a little bit before, it's a really hard thing to say, but one day I did ask myself on the back of doing all of this work with Debbie was, is my purpose to end cancer and start cancer cures? Is that what gets me out of bed in the morning? And I can't deny that it's an important part of it for me, but it's probably not the thing, personally speaking, for me that's the most important in my job and in my role in my life. My job and how I get to do that are two different things in that sense. But cancer research in particular is important to me because a member of my family passed away from cancer not long before I took on the job here. And that was what did land me in the job of Director of Marketing and Fundraising at Worldwide Cancer Research. So I guess the thing that I wanted to touch on here is a little bit of my own personal story. And And as I call it, how I did a dolly, because this quote that I use and batter people around the head with all the time, find out who you are and do it on purpose, actually came from none other than the wonderful Dolly P, who I just have huge admiration for all the great things that she does in the world, and she does them in her own personal style, in her own way, and I think that's what's really quite inspiring about Dolly as a person. So how did I land at Worldwide Cancer Research? How did I find myself here, and what is my purpose? I'm a big believer in serendipity, and I would say my career up until this point has really been serendipitous. I've always been motivated by growth as opposed to goal. I'm not sitting here saying I want to get there, so I'm going to plan all my route to get there. And I always worried that that was a bit strange. And when I managed to get the place in the Marketing Academy, the biggest relief that I had was that I wasn't the only person that had done that. But what I did come to learn is that actually it's other things that, serendipity, you do have to make it happen. And a lot of that is about, as I've mentioned, understanding yourself. So when I asked myself the question, how did I get here? So Worldwide Cancer Research, I won't bore you with my full backstory. My background is in journalism, and I did a law degree. I worked in PR. But when it came to working at Worldwide Cancer Research, what happened was I was at a kind of crossroads, I guess, and again, that one of those cheesy words, but in my life, and knew that I wanted something different in terms of life and work. And I wasn't looking for a job, but I knew I wanted something to change. And I was served an advert on an email group that I was on, e-newsletter that I was on, and it was the role at Worldwide Cancer Research, and it was a maternity cover. But I saw that job advertised 1 year to the day that my gran had actually passed away from cancer, which was a really strange coincidence. But I remember when I saw it, I was like, this doesn't happen by accident. There's a reason why this has happened. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a massive sports fan, and as I also mentioned, Worldwide Cancer Research was based in St Andrews, and I would have to, hands tied behind my back and pushed all the way along, I would have to go to St Andrews once a week, which to me, many people that sounds like a nightmare, but to me, it felt like going on holiday every week and getting to see a place that I had huge affinity for. So for me, both sport, my love of sport, my love of St Andrews, and the love for my gran, and also having gone through the whole experience that losing someone to cancer is, and I think it's important to say, and I know a few of you have mentioned on the chat function earlier that cancer is part of your motivation for being here today, whether it's because someone else has had cancer that you know, whether you've had your own experience, or whether it's something that you just truly care a lot about. I was very much in that boat, and I still very much am, because cancer is one of those cruel, awful things that doesn't discriminate, or does it? Because actually it feels a bit like that sometimes. So like, why did this happen to me? And I think it's something that actually universally and across the whole world, people all experience at some point in some way, either personally or through someone else that they love very, very dearly. So that is what landed me at Worldwide Cancer Research. And for me at that time, it was a big risk, because I'll be honest, I'm definitely a person that likes security, and I was going into a maternity cover role, and I'm on my own. I had financial security tied up my house, and I'm like, is this a good move? I'm not sure this is actually very sensible, but do you know what? It feels right. There's just something about this. It makes me know that it's the right thing. So I came here thinking I was only going to be here for a year, and it was my 4-year anniversary at Worldwide Cancer Research on Saturday, although I didn't start on a Saturday. So it shows you that making a decision based on your gut, or is it your gut, which we'll come to, based on your values and the things that drive you, motivate you, and that you truly care about, really help you land in the place that you should be. So as I say, 4 years, a rebrand, a restructure, a relocation later. In terms of the organisation, I am still here and loving it. But what I hadn't quite appreciated is that the reason I got here was very much aligned with my personal values. So in preparation for the Marketing Academy, which is how Jo and I met, we did a thing called the Barrett Personal Values Assessment. I don't know if how many of you have actually done this. Anyone that's come across me will probably have heard me talk about this before. And as I mentioned, I'm a lover of words. And the best thing about the Barrett's Values Assessment is that it's just a bunch of words on a screen, and you pick the 10 that resonate most with you or make you feel something the most. And you probably would need to do it a couple of times to make sure you get the right ones, because sometimes you miss ones on the screen. But I did that little assessment, and I just feel like that changed things for me. I started to understand myself a bit better. I looked at the things and thought, oh, that's how I've come here. So the key things that came out of my values assessment were that family is important to me, a sense of fun, enthusiasm, which is probably not a surprise. I'm quite an enthusiastic, jazz handsy kind of person. Creativity is important to me. So you'll see through the course of this, our brand is all about having a bit of creativity, a bit of fun, a bit of enthusiasm. Compassion is massively important. Again, something that I think Joe and I both very much have in common. I know that he's talked a lot about empathy in the past, and I think that's something that's really important to me too. Personal and professional growth and leadership. So all of these things came out of my personal values assessment, and although I probably knew them deep down, I would never have been able to rhyme them off the tongue. And actually what I came to realise on reflection, having done that exercise, was that's what drove me to worldwide cancer research. Family, because of my gran, and because of the cancer connection. The creativity, because the organisation needed a bit of a shake up and a rebrand and a bit of a creative problem solving, I guess. Compassion, again, as I say, cancer community all around the world is a really important thing. But the thing that really, really, really is at the core of me is leadership. As the jumper says in my picture, I lead with love, and I love to lead. It's what gets me up in the morning. So every morning, the best thing and the most excited thing that I have is when I know that I'm going to spend time with my team, speaking to them and hearing, as I've said, what makes them tick and what makes them talk. So for me, actually, all of those things contributed to me being at Worldwide Cancer Research and finding my purpose, however you want to frame that. And I hadn't even realised it. So you can do things deliberately or on purpose, but sometimes you're living it without really knowing. I think it's a really important thing to say that. I had consistency of purpose, but I didn't even know it. And probably a lot of you sitting here are doing that, and again, don't really know it, which is why I told the story first before we got into the detail of some of the things that we're going to look at. So what is purpose and why does it matter? Excuse me, take a wee drink there. So this is an interesting one, and again, there's loads of different definitions of this. I could have given you a staple one. I'm not going to do that. You'll have heard the Simon Sinek why. You'll have heard the North Star, a combination of both on your screen just now. So really, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can define what purpose is, but it really is about consistency. For me, it's about what your actions, energy and emotion all drive you towards. It is about consistency and doing those things consistently. And actually, in a lot of ways, your values are the things that help you make decisions. They're a good decision-making barometer. And usually if you get angry about something or something doesn't feel right, it's because something's going against your personal values, which again comes back to purpose. I'm sure some of you will have seen these little diagrams on the screen. Isn't it interesting how circles just seem to enter into our lives in so many different ways? But each of these, the first one on the left is the Jim Collins version from Good to Great. The next one, Simon Sinek's Why. Then we've got Ikigai, that I know Sherilyn from the Marketing Academy spoke to you all about a few months back. And then on the right, we've got one from David Hyatt's book about doing purpose. Isn't it interesting to see that all of them have one thing in common, which is the middle point of everything? And I think for me, I've used each of these in different exercises at different times. And I'll be honest and say that never ever does the same result happen each time, but a variation of that does. And I think it's important to say that actually what it's all about is finding the sweet spot. And actually we are the sum of all of our experiences and a little of what we're not and what we've not experienced yet. You know, purpose is a lot of it's about drive and what you want as opposed to simply what you have. You know, without having that drive and pushing towards something, you won't ever get there. So it needs to be what you've learned about yourself, where you're at, what's important to you, but also where you want to go. And you'll hear people talking about vision and mission and values and all of those things, and they're all of that is a variation of these different things. But for me, purpose is really about the sum of our experiences and finding the sweet spot in the middle, because every interaction that we have, every activity that we do, everything that we learn has the ability to shape us, and also it can add or detract to our view of the world, and that's actually what helps us drive. So if you think about the experiences of 2020, you know, and I mean, you know, specifically want to mention the George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement. What happened there sparked drive in a lot of people. It made people sit up and take notice. It created purpose for a lot of people. And that's because the sum of that experience helped them resonate with what was deep inside them. And the things that made people angry were because values were crossed. And that's why values and purpose are so, so important, both as a person and as an organisation. So a little bit about sweet spot. So for me, and this is my definition, it's important to say, I'm not borrowing someone else's words, although it's probably the sum of things I've read and learned over the course of the piece. For me, purpose is the means by which you make a positive impact on the world. For me, purpose isn't just the why. You need to know the who, the what, the why, the how, and probably a little bit of the where. And all of that coming together in order to achieve something special, because you can't really get to the why without all the rest of those things. And I think that's a really important thing for us all to understand and to learn, because ultimately, why just can't be plucked out of thin air. And that's a lot of the problem that we've got with society at the moment, is that they're throwing purpose as a word around like, you know, sweeties. It's not, you know, you've got to have a real reason behind it. You can't just change it by the day. It needs to be really rooted in the truth more than anything else. So how do you find out who you are and do it on purpose? I know that the marketing meetup community loves a bit more practical hows and whats in terms of how we can get to the ultimate goal in terms of purpose. So I've got 3 top tips, and I was interested to see at the beginning, Joe talked about 3 outcomes he'd like to see. I've got 3 top tips about how you can find out who you are and do it on purpose, based loosely around some of the stuff that I learned through doing the Mark Ritson diagnosis stuff. It's the same sort of premise, but these are my how to find out who you are and do it on purpose sort of 3 rules. The first one is to know thyself. And I had a great mentoring session last week with Antonia Wade from the CMO at Capita. And she said to me, Laura, do you know what? At the end of the day, you're a world leading expert in yourself. Only you know the truth behind what drives you and what motivates you and what you value. So the things I would advise you to have a think about in knowing and understanding yourself are, do your personal values assessment, see what it throws up, see if it feels right, try and understand a wee bit about what's there. And also have a think about how you got here today. You know, me thinking about how I got to worldwide cancer research helped me understand how my values had actually shaped my purpose and, you know, my motivations. Also understand who you are. And actually a good starting point for that is actually who you're not. Again, we did an exercise at the Marketing Academy where they asked a lot of questions about who you are or about what you liked, or you know, Ikigai asks you about what you like. And I kind of found it really difficult because I like so many things, and my paper was getting longer and longer and longer. And I'm like, I cannot truly love all of these things. So I started in the converse and said, what don't I like? And it helped me really understand almost opposites of those things to a point. You know, if I don't like that, what do I like? And that helped me condense it down. So be honest about who you are, but also who you aren't. But the key to that is being honest. And that can be really hard. I am the queen of personality tests. I think I've done every single one going. There's one called the saboteurs. If you've not done that, that was a real eye opener. The things that get in your own way, which, you know, you read and you go, oh, it's really true, but I really don't want to see that. And the same goes for your MBTI. You know, I'm sure a lot of you have done your 16 personalities assessment and come out with things, and you read the good bits and you go, oh yeah, that's me. And you read the hard bits and you kind of cringe a bit, but you do also have to admit that those bits are you, because you need to admit the bits that you might not like, but they're also important to helping figure out what drives you and what doesn't. The second thing is to do your own research. So again, as Mark Ritson did, he talks about through brand diagnosis, you know, speaking to your audience and understanding what they think of you. And the main reason for that is that the person you think of as yourself exists only for you. So each of you on this call or on this session today will see a different me than the me that's in here. And you'll hear what I'm saying in a different way than I think it's coming out of my mouth. And it's quite important to understand that. Brené Brown talks about Square Squad. It's also important to understand whose opinion matters to you and who doesn't. So, you know, have a Square Squad. And that, when she says that, she's talking about a famous Post-it note, which I also love. Write down on the side of a Post-it note who your Square Squad are, who are the people whose opinions of you are important to you. That's people close to you on a personal level, people that you work with, perhaps, possibly mentors or coaches. and understand for yourself who it is. And then that means that any other feedback that you get in life, you can make a decision about, well, are they on my square squad? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then the second question you can ask yourself is, and is what they're saying valuable and useful to me? And you can go from there. 360 feedback is really important, hearing a little bit about what other people see and maybe helping you pick up on things that you don't know that you're doing. Self-awareness is basically born from those things. It's the, where your personal brand, as they say, would comes as the sweet spot between where you think that you are and where other people think that you are, and where you meet in the middle. The big important thing here, though, is to be prepared to be Marmite. Make sure you ask people that are going to be honest with you and get them to tell you some of the things, the ugly truths that you might not like, because actually you need to know what you're not in order to understand what you are, as I've said already. So be prepared to hear some things you don't like, but also to understand and appreciate, you know what, I don't need everyone to like me. If I'm being true to who I am, not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. And actually you will find that that's probably the most freeing experience you will ever come across in your life. And the third tip, what do you want? And this is a really, really hard question to answer. Actually, I usually get quite emotional when I think about what it is that I want, because I find it quite hard to say. But you shouldn't work for a cause. You should work for a cause, not for applause. And that is about knowing what you want. What do you care about? So what causes really spring you into action? Where is your inner geek? So if you're going to geek out on something, what does it tend to be? If you really just want to go and learn everything about something, what is it? And how can you kind of think about that in terms of your purpose? What would you do even if you weren't going to be paid? It's just always, if you look at doing trustee roles, for example, and you're going to be giving away your expertise for free, you really need to care about what it is that you're giving that to, because you're going to have to give a lot of your time and energy for nothing. So that's maybe a good test to do, the NXD test. And what do you need when your energy is depleted? This is a big tell for me. So when I'm starting to feel I've had a really tiring week at work, or I'm feeling a bit uninspired, I know that I need to spend time with my team, and I need to hear how they're doing and what they're getting on with and how things are going for them. That's what's important to me, which also gives you a bit of a steer on how do you fill up your cup. So those are my 3 top tips. Know yourself, do your research, and understand what it is that you want. Which takes me on to the purpose pitfalls. You'll see my wee shocked person on the right hand side there. These are not the things that you want to be doing when it comes to purpose, and it's a lot of the reason that purpose means so much to me. And that's actually, I've got a big gripe with purpose at the moment, and that's because we have a lot of purpose-led brands, but we also have purpose marketing, and I think the lines between the two are blurred. Purpose-led brands are about exactly the process I talked about from Mark Ritson, understanding what you're here for, what's your intention as a brand, and what do you want to achieve, and then you make all of your decisions behind that. Purpose marketing is a bit more kind of jumping on a bandwagon, in my opinion, and I hasten to add it's my opinion. I'm sure there were plenty of other ones, and I would love to hear it if you disagree with me. And these are the kinds of interactions that I enjoy the most. For me, purpose marketing, some people do it really well, but there's a big trend for it at the moment, and it's hard to understand at times whether or not a brand genuinely actually cares about the purpose that they're throwing out there, that they align themselves to social causes just to get to their customer. I see some really good examples of it working, but there are far more examples of it not. And I, as an organ coming from a non-profit sector where purpose is basically our whole purpose, it's quite hard to see other brands jumping on that now, and that little space that was reserved for charities isn't quite there anymore. So it's quite important, I think, for me to understand the distinction between the two of those things. So what do I mean by purpose pitfalls? So the first one is overreach. So when brands throw out these purposes that are so lofty, you go, like, really? You really think you're going to be able to do that? And actually, when I was thinking about this, I found a great wee graphic last night, which gave me a bit of a laugh. How high should your purpose be? So you can start off at the twatosphere, which is where you are claiming that you're going to change the whole world. It's a bit like the world peace question, isn't it? Do you genuinely mean that? Or are you just saying it because it sounds good? Or you can be in the seller, where you just basically say, I'm just here to make money, which, to be honest with you, would be a bit of a soulless life. Really what you want, again, coming back to that sweet spot, is the bit in the middle. Joe and I said earlier today, everything in life is about balance. Everything can be answered by talking about balance, and that's really what the sweet spot in the middle position generally is. A reasonable reach. Aim high, but stay grounded. In the charity sector, for those of you that are on here, we call that the impossible dream. We know we're White Cancer Research, we want to end cancer. The likelihood is that will not happen in our lifetime, but we're not going to stop until we get closer to it. The next one is the purpose shower. That's really about authenticity, a wee bit about what I talked about in terms of purpose marketing. Marketers are now getting savvy to the fact that the millennials and Gen Z, demographics are very, they are driven more by purpose. And now you hear more and more and more about this purpose, that purpose, and throwing all these purposes at us, but actually, are they authentic? And are they doing actually purpose a disservice by tarnishing the whole concept? So purpose shower, and I heard a great example of this from Vic Harrison at Charity Water, where she talked about, especially in the non-profit sector, people, the difficulty we have is that a value exchange is more challenging to see than when you go and buy a product. So at Worldwide Cancer Research, what is it we're selling to you? Are we selling to you the cures for cancer? You're not going to see that until they actually happen. But in the commercial sector, for example, you'd be saying, I need a plant pot. Where do I go and find a plant pot? And as much as you might see yourself as someone who is driven by purpose, you'll go to the nearest shop that has the best plant pots available and buy either the one that's most affordable or the one that looks the best. You get your value exchange, you go home with your plant pot, you're quite happy. From a not-profit sector, it's harder to get that value exchange, but that's why people are so important, and that your purpose is authentic. So it does give you a little bit of a sense of, make sure that you're careful about use of the word purpose and what it actually resonates with in terms of your brand. And finally, we'll all remember the Pepsi saga. The shoehorn is really the worst type of purpose-driven marketing that you possibly can get. We talk about, well, do you know what, that group of that demographic, they love Kendall Jenner, so let's find a purpose, and purpose matters to them, and Kendall Jenner matters to them, so let's find a way to put the two together, and it'll be genius and it'll work really well. And actually, it absolutely hit the fan, didn't it? So for me, it's about shoehorning your purpose into your audience instead of thinking more about the core of your organization. If you can't consistently do it, don't start it, because you'll never be able to get to the end or to demonstrate your impact against your purpose. At charity sector, demonstrating impact is really, really important. We have to do it every single year. Our donors, our partners, they expect it, and quite rightly too. They are giving us their money. They want to see where it's going. Actually, a lot of organisations now throw purpose around and they don't demonstrate any impact against that. The last thing that you should do is shoehorn, because you'll never be able to demonstrate impact that way. So that is my whistle stop tour, and I'm conscious of time, all around all things purpose. And my last piece of audience participation is, I could give you key takeaways, but I'm not going to. I'm going to ask you what yours were, because that helps me learn about what landed and what didn't, and what you agreed with and what you didn't. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that there's been something in there for you that helps you think a bit more about your purpose for yourself and for your brand, and what to do and what not to do. Thank you.
Amazing, Laura. Thank you so much. Like, I'm sat here. I got quite emotional about halfway through that presentation. I was saying to people that marketing webinars are not typically associated with making people feel emotional. There I was, and honestly, that was unreal. So thank you so much. We've got some people. So Kim has said her takeaway was do it on purpose, and now I'm losing them all because they're coming in too quick. Angie's saying growth, not goals. We've got a whole lot of thank yous coming in. Alex says that founder plus brand, and one of the same is her takeaway. Erica says it's been really timely message for me, because I'm really struggling with my direction right now, which is amazing. Sharon, the 3 tips are great. I've always said that I won't do to make sure I am clear, but I've always questioned. I'm sorry, my teeth and my brain have disconnected. But Sophie says loved it, also felt a bit emotional. There's so many amazing comments coming here. I'll definitely send you through the chat file afterwards.
So that'd be wonderful. And listen, if there's anyone that would like to have a chat about any of this stuff afterwards, please do look me up on LinkedIn. And I love, as I said, I love talking to people and hearing you know, what makes them tick and what makes them talk. So please do drop me a little note, and we can maybe jump on a call and have a chat at some point, because I think be really good to hear. I won't be sorry I said that, I promise. It'll be great to chat to some of you. The best thing for me is meeting new people, and it's the one thing that I've missed through lockdown. So great opportunity to catch up with some of you afterwards.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. So let's take some questions. We've got 15 minutes left. So I mean,
Great.
your warning at the beginning about speaking for too long was not carried through, and actually I could have just listened to you all day. But let's take some questions from the community, because they are awesome. So the first one's from Jemima, who actually mentioned at the beginning that her motivation for attending today was coming through 3 large spinal surgeries as well, which is incredible. So well done, Jemima. And Jemima asks, how do you instill a sense of purpose into your team? So I think we've focused quite a lot on like ourselves, and you also mentioned in the branding exercise, but actually on a day-to-day level, when it comes to your team, how do you sort of bring that to life?
Do you know what? I'm so glad you maybe asked this question, because I had slide on this and then I took it out because I thought I was going to be talking too much in terms of time. So I'm so glad that we get to talk about this a little bit. So for me, and in terms of our team at work, we talk about the organisation's greater purpose, but I focus very much on each of their personal purposes and how that contributes to the organisation. So for example, and I think there's another question a bit further down around how do you demonstrate your personal values at work? So those things are kind of tied together. So one of the first things I get my team to do when they're new into the organisation is go away, do their personal values assessment, and do a couple of my other favourite tests. Everyone's like Laura and her personality tests. But go away, understand yourself a bit, come back and think about that in the context of what our overarching purpose is as an organisation, and how you can utilise that to deliver the charity's purpose. Because actually a purpose-led brand is really important, but the only thing that gets you there is the people that are in the brand, as we talked about at the beginning, Joe. So for me, it's all about, if you know your own purpose, you know how you contribute to the organisation. So if I use myself as the example, I see my purpose as leading people and leading with love. And for me personally, and Worldwide Cancer Research has given me absolutely amazing opportunities to be able to do that. I've got a team that I care immensely about, of wonderful, wonderful people. And in doing that job and leading those people and getting the best from them and understanding themselves and their purpose, we deliver on the organisation's purpose. We often revert back and do a wee kind of reminder session about let's remember why we're here. And that's the purpose of the organisation, which really, although it's to end cancer, who's it for? It's for the community, it's for the cancer community, it's for people who have either had cancer, have lost someone, or have someone going through cancer. So really it's about aligning people's personal purposes, which will not be the same. As much as I would love to say that the main thing in my life is about starting cancer cures, but my own personal purpose contributes to the purpose of the organisation, and that's what makes it work.
I love that. Thank you. It reminds me of a quote actually that came through the Marketing Academy, which was, in fact, there's a couple. So Penny Ferguson, who actually gave a talk a long time ago with a living leader, was speaking about the role of leaders is to serve other people. So actually, if you're looking inward, then you're probably doing it wrong. But if you look outward and look to benefit others,
totally.
That's one. But then the other was, it's a quote that I've actually written down. I had it on a Post-it note on my desk, which was help people to use their own strengths rather than necessarily look to just give them a task. So if you can help people find their own strengths, you start flying. I absolutely love that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's lovely.
There's a lovely comment there from Claire, actually, who says, who else wants Laura to be their manager? So,
oh, goodness. Don't know, maybe you could ask my team, they might not agree with you.
yeah. If any of them are still in the chat right now, then we can get the 360 feedback right now. Okay, next question from Louise. There you go, Debbie. Says she's fab. So I think that's.
I'll give you your payment later.
Yeah. So we've got a question from Louise, who speaks about, you talk about knowing yourself. Do you find that finding your sweet spot is easier as you get older and more emotionally mature?
100%. I don't think I could have thought about any of these things when I was a bit younger. And I think the truth of, when you're young, I'll speak about myself personally. When I was young, I would always look up and be like, I know my stuff here. I know what I'm doing. Like, why are these people not listening to me? Like, they're a bit older. I don't know what they're, but actually nothing can replace experience. You have to go through some stuff. in order to be able to understand where you are. And that's why I talk about you're the sum of your experiences. You can't truly understand yourself until you see how you react in certain situations. And to be honest with you, from, again, a lot of the coaching that we've done through the Marketing Academy helps you understand the battle scars. Yes, absolutely. When you're younger, largely speaking, there are some, areas where you perhaps, let me think how I want to express this. I lived a very fortunate life. I had wonderful parents and a really loving and happy family. And I really didn't want for very much, even though my mum and dad had to struggle and I just didn't know about it. But, I just had a really tremendously happy life. And I remember when I was going to university and I was a straight A student, school was my bag. When I went to university, my dad was like, I'm a bit worried about Laura, because I think when she goes to university, it's going to be a different kettle of fish. And there's much more, much bigger groups of people. And he was totally right. When I went to uni, it was like I'd gone from a wee safe space to somewhere that was much bigger and scarier. So I learned a lot about myself through that time. I wouldn't have known that had I not had that adversity. So yeah, battle scars and getting older are so important, and that it builds resilience. But the resilience is also the thing that helps you point towards what's for you and what's not. I don't know if this is a Scottish thing or whether it's something that you guys would say down south as well. But there's a great expression my gran used to always say, which was, "What's for you won't go by you." And I think for purpose, I would have used that had I been confident that this was an expression that you guys would all have known. But yeah, what's for you won't go by you. So if it's something that sits with you, that makes you feel good, there'll be a reason to go back to that.
I love that. That's I've got a few quotes from this morning, and that's going to stick with me too. I don't think I had heard that phrase, but I definitely understand it. So. Man, this is so good. Jemima asks another question, which is, as a leader, how do you demonstrate purpose, show motivation, and encourage creativity and innovation? So we touched upon that from the perspective of getting the most out of your team.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, do you feel the pressure in your role at all to sort of feel like you're acting in a purposeful way, even if you're like making it up like the rest of us and
Definitely, there's definitely a lot of making it up, Joe, let me be honest. If you don't, you got to do a bit of faking it till you make it. That is for absolute sure. How do I think a big bit of this is about being congruous for me, and actually understanding emotions a bit better. So one of the big things for me over the course of the last year, and maybe there's a few people here who will resonate with this, I had a really bad perception of negative emotion. So like, people used to always say to me, Laura, you're never angry. And I was like, oh, I get angry. They'd be like, well, you never show it. But I was suppressing all of my anger all the time. If I was angry about anything, I just didn't really, express it. And actually, when I look back at that and think about it, like so many things over the course of time, I wasn't ever able to express what I really thought, what I really think. And I was always suppressing it and finding other ways around it. And then eventually it would meet me in the eye, and usually I would burst out crying because my expression of anger turns out that it's actually sobbing like a maniac. I cry a lot, but actually, I know, honestly, it's like laughable. But the big thing that comes through that for me is you have to be congruent. So if I was angry or upset about something and I wasn't showing it, my team wouldn't know, and they wouldn't know not to do it again. Or generally across the organisation, if I didn't like something and I didn't speak up about it, then things would go through that actually could have been better. Or if I really liked something and didn't listen to what other things would be happening, you could also end up in the situation where you didn't properly assess something and look for the better in it. So I think for me, it's about being congruent. It's also about listening. Listening is so important. And I know I talked a wee bit about knowing yourself, but also it's not just about 360 feedback, it's just listening to other points of view and other expressions and other people's values. Because whilst mine are very set in stone for me, you can understand people better if you understand their values and their contribution to certain things, and it does help creativity. You need a wealth of, life would be really boring if we were all the same. Listening, not hearing, absolutely. So many people, what's the expression? You speak to respond and not to listen to respond and not to understand. Mm-hmm. Listen to understand. It's so important, and that definitely helps with the being congruent, but also encouraging creativity.
Absolutely. And as a little teaser for the next season of webinars, then I think we've actually got Oscar Trimboli. He's like the world leader on listening, like speaking.
I can't wait.
Yeah, he's wicked. He's absolutely wicked. So like, honestly, like this would be one of those talks where like we put it up on the website and it'll be like a little sly one. You know, it won't be the big headliner, but like you have to be there for that talk. It's
Oh, that
like,
sounds brilliant.
yeah, it's amazing. We've got about 5 minutes left, so let's take a few
Cool.
more questions. So we've got one from Alex, who asks, and I think this goes back to your brand exercise at the beginning, which was, how did you get senior management to buy into the project of purpose development? Because you know there must have been a context that how that sort of played out, and
Yeah.
how did you get them to sort of invest that time?
Being totally honest, this has been a bit of it's been a long-term thing. It didn't happen overnight, and I did it quite. I think the best thing you can do with your senior management is to show them, not tell them. So like going in and saying we need to do this is never going to convince anybody. And actually, one of the best pieces of advice I had, that was quite early in my career, was it's amazing what you can achieve if you don't care who gets the credit. That comes back a little bit to that, do it for a cause, not for applause. You know, if you can, you know, it's quite good if you can get your senior management to kind of think that it's their idea. And although you like taking the personal, you know, pride in that, you'll know yourself. And if you know yourself, then that's the most important thing. If you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of the credit in order to get something done, that's the best piece of it. I always just do stuff and then tell them afterwards, yeah, what is it for permission? Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Yeah, so my best piece of advice would be, if you can put aside, let's be honest, we all have an ego. Every single person has one, just everyone's are different sizes. If you can put a little bit of your ego to the side, you'll probably find it easier to get things through. And that was definitely how we started it. It was, what do you think would happen if we tried something different?
Nice.
Get you know, kind of lead them along the way, show and not do, and always use examples. If you can use examples of other people who've used it successfully, and people that your senior management team would kind of aspire to, not people that they would, you know, think about, get to know them a bit and who motivates them. It's always a good way to go.
I love that. And actually, you mentioned at the end, speaking about impact, and something that's something that you have to do a lot in your job. Presumably every pound has to be almost counted for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're going through an exercise like that, how do you then go about speaking about the value of purpose in sort of, you know, if we're using horrible marketing terms like the ROI sort of things, is there a way of doing that, or how did you approach it?
That's a really challenging one. And I think, again, coming back to that demonstration of impact. So I guess from a fundraising point of view and a marketing point of view, we don't have to do the hard part, which is the actual demonstration of the impact, which has to be done by the services team and the research team. However, it's not an easy thing to demonstrate. And one of the big things that you need to think about at the beginning is, how are we going to show that at the other side? So for us, we need to, this might be interesting for some of you guys to know, we have, you know, for a cancer research piece, from idea to treatment is about 20 to 25 years. So we fund only at the very beginning bit, the ideas bit. So as you can imagine, it takes a really long time to get to the other side and demonstrate that impact. So how do you do that? So for us, we looked at what happened next after ours. And if the researcher gets additional funding to progress the idea, then that's a success for us. And that's us, you know, demonstrating impact. We call it downstream funding. So for every pound we spend, actually what we've worked out is that over the course of the last 10 years, it's resulted in £4 more per pound for each ongoing piece. So that's kind of what we've done, is find a bit of impact that is really clearly demonstrable, but also is really specifically you, because otherwise, you know, tying purpose to it doesn't really work.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. And it is one of those difficult things. It's you know, we speak about it all the time. I guess an example which is you know, in context in our world, is that, like, for the sponsors, for example, we know that it's doing good, but sometimes it's going to be quite difficult to sort of prove that sort of that, you know, brand awareness, or certainly, you know, sort of people sort of thinking better of a specific brand because of their association with the marketing meetup, as an example.
Yeah.
So picking something certainly sounds like it's a really great idea. I like that. So we'll take one more from Katie. So Katie asks, do you dedicate time routinely to understanding your purpose, or have you seen the purpose of self or brand change over time?
I would say yes, I dedicate time to it. I definitely, if I've been wearing the jumper I was wearing yesterday, it has dreamer emblazoned across it. What I have here, dream, plan, do. I'm a dreamer. I think a lot. I'm definitely someone that spends a lot of time in my own head. Definitely extrovert, introvert in that sense. Like I just like to think and read and learn and that sort of stuff. So yes, I would say there's definitely a lot of effort put into my understanding of things, and that, listen to webinars, going to various events. So yes, there's time set aside, and actually I make sure the time is set aside for my team, which I think is really important. If you're expecting someone to show up to work like that, you need to give them time in order to make that happen. So we have specific days every quarter to do it. We do it through the one-to-ones as well. So yes, we definitely was there a second part to that question? We definitely put time aside for it.
It was just about whether you put time aside, really.
Yeah, time aside. So yes, absolutely. And I would definitely recommend doing it. You'll feel good for it.
And actually, speaking on t-shirts and jumpers, there were so many comments saying, where does Laura get all her t-shirts and stuff the quotes on? Have you got a go-to source? I mean, this is an important question.
Zara's always good for them if you're looking for them. Love a Zara effort. Yeah, so like basically most of my clothes have something written on them, which is a bit sad actually. I didn't really realise it until one day I looked at my wardrobe and went, oh, is that a coincidence here?
No, I love it. Honestly, the positivity and the thoughtfulness that I spoke about at the beginning has just absolutely exuded itself from this presentation. Laura, you've been amazing. Honestly, like I couldn't have asked you to do a better job. And like you see Berit there saying, such an inspiring session. What a great way to start Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Berit.
It just like absolutely sums up just an amazing session. So thank you for putting the thoughtfulness into it, and thank you for the whole community for like adding so much through the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always better when you've got people engaging and saying things. Like there's nothing worse than talking into nothing. So that gets me going. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a little microcosm, a little place of sheer positivity. So thank you all so much in any capacity for contributing this morning. Just to close out very quickly on marketing meetup stuff, then we've got a webinar next Tuesday. It's how to PPC like a pro. So a big departure from today's session, but also something that's incredibly important. If I could ask one or two favors, the first is to thank the sponsors. It goes such a long way. Thank you is a really, really powerful word. And the other one is if you could share anywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm giving you a chance to enjoy these comments. Then please do take the time to share today's session, because that's how this community grows. That's how we help more people. It's all available for free. And it would be wicked to help more people. That's all we want to do. There is one final question from Claire, which I think is important, which is how can we support the charity? So is there a way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you hop onto our website, we are at the moment, we are very much, we call it for cure starters. You can lend your voice, you can donate money, you can get involved in a whole variety of ways. So head over to the website, or if you want to have a chat about it and you've got some thoughts on what you might be able to do, please do give me a wee shout and we can have a chat. For us, sharing a post and raising awareness, as you know, identity crisis, we want to make sure everyone knows that we are not CR UK. So if you want to share some of our posts and get our name out there, that would be fantastic. So yeah, anything at all along those lines would be great.
Amazing. Well, you've heard it, people. You can send Laura's LinkedIn on absolute meltdown for the rest of the day. So thank you everyone for being here. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you, Laura. And
thank you.
Take care.